Hello, welcome to IBridge Experiential Learning Talks. Today is a special day. We are with a friend, with a colleague, with a great leader who leads British International School of Moscow. We are with Mr. Tom English. Hi, Tom. How are you?
I'm okay, Francesco. It's a pleasure to be on this podcast, and I'm very excited for this new initiative with the CCAAIBWS. So I'm doing well today.
Oh, thank you very much. So, Tom, tell us a little bit about you so our audience will know a little bit more.
No problem. So, despite what my surname suggests, I'm from Ireland. I have my major education was rooted in Ireland. So, my BA, my MA, I studied in Ireland. And after that, I took, I guess, the equivalent of a gap year. And I lived in America for some time. And I returned via Switzerland. And that was partly where I began to encounter my teaching career. And from Switzerland, I applied back to the University College of Cork to do a teaching degree. And over that stage that year, after some intensive training in Cork, I decided that that exactly was the career for me.
Wow. And you are now in Moscow, right?
Yes, yes,
So, how did you reach to from Switzerland, from US to Moscow?
yeah, absolutely. It certainly probably wasn't in my plans when I was 18, but after getting my teacher qualification, I worked in Ireland, and this was about over 15, 16 years ago. And at the time in Ireland, and especially for someone emerging into education as a teacher, it was a difficult time, and the economy was certainly in a bad place. So I had some temporary contracts in Ireland, and then it was a decision to make to travel abroad. A traditional trajectory for an Irish person, regardless of profession, is usually the UK, America, Australia. They're paths well worn by Irish people in a very good way. But I was looking for something a little bit different. And I had experience teaching Russian students in Switzerland. At that time, I think it was Euro 2008, so kind of a crossover with what's going on now. And I met some amazing kids. And historically, so while I'm an English teacher, I'm also qualified to teach history. I've been fascinated about the world history and Russia's role in that for hundreds of years. I was somewhat drawn to the unknown, or maybe the version of what we were told, and to take a chance. So very much Francesco was it was a leap of faith, but an opportunity came up as an English language and literature teacher at BIS, and I decided I would take it when made the offer.
Yeah, that's really great. So, in light of this, can you share your philosophy and your approach into leaderships, the way that you use or the skills that you use in your current job?
Absolutely. In the school that I'm at, so it's 14 years now, I'm at the same school, but in a good way, I think I have gone through different positions in the school. From a straight full-on English teacher, I've gotten to know all the staff, all the students, particularly in the school, the families, because there's a very loyal base of primary families into secondary, and they've been with the school just for years and years. And that word of mouth um, expression to get students into the school has really helped us. So from that, I moved on to different coordinator positions. And 4 years ago, I was appointed, after being the head teacher of the school. And that, I guess, the grounding of being here so long, because I think, as you know, Francesco, generally for international staff, there can be a high turnover in the schools that we're in. But thankfully, where we're at, there's actually quite a core group of people who've settled and live here, and it is their home. So I think that has helped me in that the local staff here and those who arrive know I've been here for some time. I've invested many things too in the country, and that my family is here. I'm married. I'm very much settled. I live very close to the school. So when I speak, not just with authority to people when needed, I think people really listen to me. And it's something that might cross over our discussion today, this kind of difference between hearing something and listening. And I found it took a number of years to establish that respect and that background. Um, but listening, I think, is a core feature of leadership, not just being firm, and, focused and strategic, because they're really important things too. But listening to those, especially those who maybe at times do not agree with what you say.
Of course, yes, indeed. There are challenges in leadership jobs, definitely. You mentioned about you develop stability, you create stability in your own context. And can you share some strategies or some tips about in developing staff, in bringing all staff together, all stakeholders together? Something that could be interesting for our audience to understand or for people who are new in in leadership positions.
Yeah, I mean, partly my responses might overlap into some of the obvious things, but certainly for those who are looking at ways to try something different. For me, it's always been about having the structures in place. So it's aided me when I came here that I saw probably two very effective and organized head teachers who I was under before I got this position. So at coordinator level for us, we're a British system for Key Stage 3, 4, and in our IB A-level crossover, everything was there already. So it helped me that I inherited systems that were there, but very much maybe at a lower level in school. And I mean that not in a derogatory way, but the role I think in the secondary school, but specifically of the form tutor. For us, this is a person who sees our students per year group every day. In our system, they're a teacher too, but they are, I guess is maybe an English UK expression, at the coal face, really in front of the students in a really positive way, but also picking up on pastoral issues. Um, so those structures, and if it's listening, I said before, the idea of clear communication, that there is not just a strategy, but a flow of who is who, that the parents, that the students, that the senior management. So for in a school like us, a lot of our administration aren't necessarily near the students at all, and they need, I think, it might be an international school thing too, a much better understanding of and I mean this again in a positive way, of the product, of the student, of who we're celebrating here and dedicating all our time to. So this idea of internal collaboration, I think, is very important. And that can be, if it's face-to-face meetings. So I'm very happy we're being recorded here. But as we talked before the call, meeting people face-to-face, I think, is really important. And where I'm speaking from now, we're of a school of where there's 5 other schools in the city of the BIS brand. And at times, even though it's one city, it can be difficult to meet everyone. But we do make a specific effort at a management level to check in at least once a month physically, that we see each other, and obviously on the phone and on online calls, probably every other second day. But that rooted, Francesco, like for us, it's internal. And I just mean that's because we have 6 schools, that internal collaboration, because sometimes you might miss something, and things can spiral out of control very quickly without that clear structure and guidelines in place.
Can you share with us a challenge that you had, so in the past or recently, that you faced as a leader and that you have to do some answers, strategic responses? So,
Yeah, I think I'll try and speak carefully here, but certainly for all of us in our
indeed,
experience
absolutely.
of the pandemic, we all shared that there was sometimes in some of the training I've been on, it's about, a response to certain emergency situations. I think we've all been trained in them, and there are playbooks for it. But at the same time, you don't really know how you're going to respond in a very much, I would say, a psychological sense until it actually happens. So I think for us as maybe global educators, the pandemic was a major learning curve that can help for things like this today, that there is a value in online communication and creating these forums, these webinars for people who maybe can never have access to them. But the current situation in Russia, and I won't elaborate too much, but that certainly has been a significant challenge over the last 2 years. And for me, maybe specifically just, when things began to change, talking to staff, and being honest and reflective, and you have to have this mask as a leader. You really have to be confident in what you're saying, and at the same time you have to be human, because sometimes you have to acknowledge that you do not have all the answers, that there is an unknown. So it doesn't maybe necessarily answer your question, but that has been the core challenge in the last 2 years is give or take every month, it's something very big happening and how you react to it. And some of that in our school, if I speak for myself anyway, and I've reached out to other international schools in Moscow, is maintaining the day-to-day, the normality of the school day is actually very important to our students, regardless of what's going on outside of school. So I think that it might sound very basic, but running a timetable, having your clubs, having your external, member associations. This specifically for you, Francesca, was very important to us as a school in how we began to maybe encounter each other a couple of years ago, and to see that the support was there externally too. That has helped my staff too, to see that these training opportunities continue. Um, that has been very helpful for us.
Yes, I still remember 2 years ago when we met the first time here in Baku. So it was really, really great to meet you for the first time and after to continue our collaboration and our friendship between our schools.
Absolutely,
So
Francesco. And it was, I think, a old school method of postage, and this was our first encounter, I think, for me anyway, with the invitation to the conference, which was maybe meant more than, your generic emails. It was, that takes time to do. So I think that really reached our administration here into, no, we're going to go. Sorry about not going this year. We're going to go and make that first contact face to face and keep talking.
it was really good. And maybe in 4 years we can organize our conference in Russia, in
I hope
Moscow.
so. That would
Yes,
be
yes.
amazing. Yeah, I hope so.
So if I would start my leadership position now from this talk and listening to you, I have a lot of tips. You shared a lot of great insights. But just to end to conclude our conversation, do you have anything else that you would like to share with our audience or with some aspiring leaders that is going to be helpful for them to move in this position?
Absolutely. I know we've been in touch before. The first one is to make a list. And I have a list in front of me, of maybe nuggets that I've encountered too. And I think it's a big thing for anyone. So again, it might be restating the obvious, but I personally am, I have a large diary here where I still want to write everything in because, I think in our positions and anyone in leadership, I hope, a leader encounters their staff and students day to day, which means you're probably encountering, over 100 questions at least per day, and you have to be on your game. But I make a point also of saying, and maybe it's somewhat irritating to staff sometimes, please follow up what we've talked about via email too, just so there's a record. And keeping a record is important because I think it's like to be professional and not ignorant, you should reply to people. You should make that connection. At our level, we have our PAs and secretaries, but at the same time, the personal contact I think is important. So it might sound obvious, and it's it is, but people forget. I have a very good strategic memory, I think, but I write everything down, and I think it's quite important. I have other things, and these are just maybe somewhat cliched, but this expression to be set in your ways, it can be very, it can get you very far, I think, in education or in management, but you should be open to other viewpoints and respectfully disagree when you can. But I think that that idea of being set in your ways certainly can get you far, but at the same time, you should acknowledge that there are voices in the room, I guess, or there should be other voices in the room. I have another expression of, and then it's more informal, Francesca, about checking your ego. Uh, Again, we're in leadership positions, generally speaking, depending on structure, where if it's a school like I'm in, what they call number one, but at the same time, you should be humble in that instance. And, the expression not abusing your power. So the ego, I think, is very important, and the charisma that should come with that too, if you have that. But to understand, some people, I remember myself being a teenager. I would have never done anything like this when I was 15. I was way too shy. I was really interested in reading, in writing, but I definitely didn't have my voice then, and it didn't come in secondary school. For me, it came in very intimate and small lectures I had at Carlow College in Ireland. And you were just like in the IB, I would say, you were demand it in a respectful way to speak, because if you don't speak, you do not have a voice. So I think, in our position, we should understand if we're trying to get something out of someone who can't talk, maybe if they're 15, leave them alone, give them a bit of time. They will open up. It does happen. Sometimes it doesn't always happen in the secondary school format. And in the IB, I think it gives all that opportunity to occur. But as an English teacher, I've taught very shy students, but in their, for example, their individual oral, I've seen them suddenly open up because they were, I guess, somewhat maybe intimidated by a big number of a class around them. So it may on one side be related to ego, but to know who you're talking to. I think people blossom at different times, and that's important too. This is like something for an obituary, but don't hold grudges. Yeah, I think that's important too, especially in our position where fallouts, I think, can happen. Is when people are very passionate about, education, which is our goal here. But, and I would like to think I'm still somewhat young, and I'm managing people who are probably 20 plus years older than me. So I'm very respectful of my age, because I think wisdom comes with age too, most of the time. So I think that, holding grudges, life's too short for that. Yeah, just if we can get on with our jobs and understand that, we have our families to go home to, and a lot of us have our families in our working environment too. And some of those, if people take them as advice, Francesco, I think make the school year easier, the holidays easier, and just to have, a more positive environment in the background, it helps.
Great. That's really, really great, Tom. So in a few more minutes, you shared your life, you share what you do, and you were able to share some advice for aspiring leaders. And I learn from you too today. So I would like to thank you very much for being with us today, and look forward to see you in the next future.
Thank you very much, Francesco. All the best, and I look forward to seeing you face to face in a couple of months.
Indeed. Thank you. Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Tom.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye bye.